Are you ready to build the spiritual house of your dreams and reveal the true goal of your soul? This is Home Improvement for the Soul.
Hello, and welcome to Home Improvement for the Soul. I'm Maddie Cheers, and I cannot tell you how pleased and grateful I am to have our guest today, C.L. King, one of my favorite human beings. We have not known each other very long. We've actually never met live and in person, but he was nice enough to have me on his podcast, and I definitely wanted to bring him to all of you. He is an amazing person. I actually consider him a role model because even though I'm about 20 years older than he is, I think he's already done in his life so many things that I look forward to doing in my own life still. So CL is just an amazing person. After experiencing abuse, neglect, and homelessness as a young child, CL was placed in group homes and foster homes throughout Northeast Ohio. His foster mom, Ruth E. Plowden, told him that he could take all of the tragedies he experienced as a child and use them to make excuses or use them to change the world. That is, when I read that, I I'm sticking that everywhere because one of the things that we'll talk about later is the fact that we both come from a background of childhood trauma, childhood abuse. And why is it that some of us get through it and do this wonderful Miss Ruth, where she says, you can either make them excuses or use them to change the world. Some of us do. Some of us go the other way. And after an honorable tour in the United States Marine Corps, CL, his wife, and 6 of his 7 children settled in Eastern North Carolina. Students and families around the world have benefited from his story. His passionate, dynamic delivery is why event organizers continue to request his life-changing presentations throughout the entire year, and why I feel so blessed for myself, for you listeners, that he had the time to come on our little podcast here. So 400,000 people later, C.L. King has distinguished himself as one of North America's most dynamic speaker. The one thing that every audience leaves with is no matter their adversity, you can still make it. I love that. And I'm so pleased and proud to introduce you to CL, who you can find at clkingspeaker.com and il247.org. So CL, on to you.
Hey, thank you, Maddie. Thank you for having me. It seems like we were just together not too long ago, right?
Doesn't it?
Yeah, man. So it's good to be. It's a whole lot less stress sitting on the other side of the chair. I enjoy running a podcast, but I equally enjoy not having to worry about if the sound's right. You got engineering everything. You could just come and bare your heart. So thank you so much for having me.
Oh, my pleasure, really. I really think that you are one of those people that embodies the concept of no faith without action. I just heard a speaker this morning talking about how to just profess your faith, proclaim your faith, whether you're Christian or you're Jewish or you're spiritual, to just say, well, I'm this or I'm that, and then go about ignoring the rest of the world or just serving yourself, is to not have faith at all. And you are definitely a man of service. I'm just so impressed with your book, the amazing book that you wrote that is your autobiography and such an inspirational story. The Who Ate My Brownie? What a great title. Who Ate My Brownie? So maybe you'd like to just expound on that just a little bit. And again, if you want to find the book, whoatemybrownie.com. You're also on Amazon, Who Ate My Brownie. I love that title. One of the best ever.
Well, thank you so much again. Yeah, just about the book. The book, since we're starting there, that it really is a lot of people, because I've done dozens of book signings over the summer, and many people would come up to me and say, "Is this a cookbook or is this what is going on here?" You know what I mean? And so that was kind of, it was intentional, but it's not totally a play on words, because it was. I was getting ready to call you Celia. Lord have mercy. It was Maddie that back when I was 11 years old, I ate a brownie living with my mother, and that decision to eat that one brownie set in motion the rest of the events of my life for the next 39 years. That one singular decision. And it was a brownie brought to my mother. I just could tell you the 60,000 foot level. It was a brownie brought to my mother by her husband from a soup kitchen. We often ate at soup kitchens, and he brought it home that night. Well, me and my sister were very hungry because I was severely malnutrition. My sister was, and he had brought that brownie home, but she said, go put it in the refrigerator. And so I had went, and I was starving. I was hungry. I just was desperate. And hunger can drive you to do different things, right? It can drive you to make some crazy decisions. Well, mine was just merely survival. Like, I've got to get some sustenance. Even at 11 years old, I realized, man. So I went in the kitchen late at night, snuck that brownie, pinched off a corner at a time, and then got to the center, and it was gone. And that was my meal for the night. The next morning, my mother comes out and asks that question. That's the title of the book. Who ate my brownie? And my sister would not tell on me. My dear sister, Melinda Jackson, she wouldn't tell on me. I told her I ate it. And my mother said that she was going to beat us every day until we told her who ate her brownie. So at 11 years old, that next morning, I walked out the front door and I never came back. I left the front door wide open. That next morning, I left and lived on the streets and bounced around from soup kitchens and sleeping under bridges, on park benches, walking throughout the city of Cleveland, watching the sun go up and down. But that set in motion the next series of decades that my life now reflects. So I'm very, very thankful that I can recall what was that, because many people, they don't know. They don't remember. It was too traumatic or whatever. But I remember it vividly, that one singular event that kind of set in motion what you see today.
And I think that is a remarkable story, because one of the things I think about at New Year's time, everybody's busy making their resolutions and looking forward. I always think that if we're going to write the story of our lives, we've got to look backward a little bit. We've got to really contemplate what brought us here. And that was one of the things that I wanted to ask you about, CL. When you look back, like I alluded to in the introduction, when you look back at all the trials and tribulations, and most of us out there have not faced what you face as far as pure survival goes. I did not grow up that way, even though there was an abusive situation in my life that came from outside my family. I grew up with everything I needed. I did not have to worry about survival. I still don't. I never have, except for the times I went camping. But other than that, no survival problems for me. Yeah. But you did. And why do you think that you were able to come through those challenges when others were not?
That's interesting. That's a great question. And, I was in a podcast workshop, and somebody had said, that's the worst thing to respond to someone when they ask you a question on an interview, to say, that's a great question. But it really is true. It's a good question, because, one of the things is I speak all across the country, and a lot of people will see me in my end state and they'll say, oh my goodness, you're a successful speaker, a father, blah, 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 blah. What was it? Well, I will tell you, I'll be very direct. My foster mom Ruth E. Plowden, whom I am sitting in the Ruth E. Plowden legacy chair. The chair that I run my podcast from is named after Ruth E. Plowden. She had 83 foster children over 30 plus years.
Wow.
83 from the inner city of northeastern Ohio.
Wow.
And she took me in. I showed up at her doorstep with 2 trash bags of clothes after leaving the Better Way group homes because I was being physically and sexually abused there. Oh. And when I showed up at her doorstep, Mom Plowden was an amazing woman. She was a white woman raising all these little black kids from the hood, right? She immediately put into my spirit, into my heart, that no matter the adversity, you still can make it. And one of the requirements to live in Mom Plowden's house was you had to go to church. That was it. Wasn't it? If you didn't go to church, you were doing chores till church was over, right? So it was like, go to church or clean the house. I said, I'll choose to go to church. And church on the North Coast, which was just 3 blocks up the road from Mom Plowden's house there in Lorain, Ohio. These people, this was a mega church, over 2,500 members. They took me in and made me feel like I was not a foster kid. They throughout the time, I became a staff member at Church on the North Coast, got to sit under the leadership of Doctors Lewis and Tina Canton, got to learn about children's ministry and help launch Joshua Kids, a 300 kid a Saturday children's program, and out ministering to people and feeding the hungry. And so I got the faith foundation that Ruth Plowden set in motion in my life. Now, listen, I am not a perfect man. I do not. These things behind me are shoulder blades. They are not angel's wings.
Right. None of us have that yet.
but it was because of that foundation. I found the foundation late. My dad was an AME Zion preacher, the guy who tried to drown me in the tub, the one that was drunk every night when he'd come home and beat me half to death. I was perplexed about what religion was until Ruth E. Plowden showed me that it was about relationship. And so here's this foster mom singing gospel music every Saturday with her loud cranking system, country gospel. And she would sit down with me, Maddie, and have me read with her the 119th Psalm. Now, for all of your listeners, the Psalms 119 is the longest set of passages in the whole Bible. It's like it's a Bible within a Bible, Psalms 119. And Mom saw something in me. Now listen, let me hurry up because I know we only got a short amount of time. Mom had 83 foster kids. We all lived in the suburban area of Lorain, Ohio, with the lawns well manicured, and you know what I mean? It was a nice neighborhood. It wasn't the hood, it wasn't the projects. It was a beautiful neighborhood. And all 83 of us had the same voice speaking to our life. All 83 of us. But there's only a small cadre of those that listened to the words. I believed her. I believed Mom. I believed her because she believed in me. She believed in me more than I believed in me.
Absolutely. And that is what it takes. It takes somebody believing in you.
Yes.
I believe. And I think you said a really important thing there. It's all about relationship. It's all about, when I think about over the course of my life, I can name you the people that influenced me. I can name you Mrs. Chipperelli, who saved me from being the outcast in seventh grade, right? I mean, and I can name the girl that made fun of me all the time from 4th grade until 7th grade, Ann Fisher, but the idea, I think, is to get away from focusing on the Ann Fishers in our life and focus more on the Mrs. Chipperellis in our life, and listen to that voice and internalize that voice that's telling you you're great, you're terrific, you can do this. That those are the voices that we need to focus on. And what I see a lot today is that young people are focused more on, and I do blame this on social media. I've said this a million times, too focused on the negative. It's
Right.
like constant negativity input. And if you stay in that place, you will never get out. Your heart will shift in the wrong direction. So one of the things I love about your constant message is you have to focus on the positive. And we're not talking about the namby-pamby positive. Yes, affirmations are great and all that, but you have to you have to actually, you and I have discussed this before, focus on spirit. You asked me on the podcast, how did I feel about the importance of spirit and spirituality in my life? And of course, they're paramount. So I'm going to turn it around and I'm going to ask you how you describe that importance in your life.
Well, I will say this, that foundationally, I got married, Maddie, at 19 years old.
Wow.
And we started having kids right away. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that for unless you want to be broke for the next 30 years. But when I left, I was with Mom Plowden for 4.5, 5 years. I was in foster care and social services for the first 18 years of my life, but those last 4 were pivotal. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And it helped me take into my marriage, fatherhood, etc., a foundation that I could lean on when times got rough. See, the subtitle of the book, No Matter the Adversity, You Still Can Make It. The truth is that like you were saying, the mamsy-pamsy pie in the sky, you're going to walk on marshmallows the rest of your life. My foster mom was not like that. She was a drill sergeant.
Yes.
I loved her to death, but she was a drill, so she didn't play no games. And I'm talking about, she had assaultive offenders in her home, and nobody ever laid a hand on Mom Plowden. Why? Because she didn't play. But also, she put in us a foundation. And I didn't leave that foundation when I left Ruth E. Plowden's home. It was like, this is so important. This has helped me so much. It's turned my life around so much, my faith in God, that I'm going to take this, and now this is going to be my foundation to start my own family. And listen, y'all want to know something? I've been married almost 30 years. I've experienced everything one can experience on the back end as well as I did on the front end. Repossessions, eating top ramen noodles, you know what I mean? Living in a single wide trailer. I've experienced it all. But let me tell you, the thing that I was able to go back to, it wasn't like, okay, let me now turn to beating my wife. Now let me turn to abusing my kids, because that's those were the answers that were dealt to me when I was living with my family. No, it was, we got to go to church and pray. Let's get down on let's read the word of God. Let's just pause and ask God to be a part of this. And not instantly did everything turn around, but because we had that as our center, and I would tell everybody, because we talked about this when you were on our show, what is the importance of having a spiritual center in your life? Whatever that spirit, whatever you know as your God of your understanding, whatever that is, or whoever that is, you need that center point of something that's bigger than you.
Exactly.
So that's for me, it's essential. I've raised my children in church. Like I said, we should probably stop saying in church, because it should just be to have a relationship with God.
Yes.
And because religion can sometimes get polluted. It's more about the relationship with your Creator. And I'm even, believe this or not, I'm going through a whole, now don't get uneasy. I'm not leaving my faith, but I'm doing a whole reevaluation of what this relationship really means. Like, is it just going in and out of a facility? Is it just sitting up and down and singing some songs? Or is it something that truly is the essence of my creative being? And so, having a faith in God and that spiritual center is the most important thing. If I didn't have that, Maddie, Lord Jesus.
It's okay.
Forgive me. Y'all just understand I love both of them, okay? I'll probably call Celia Maddie when I talk to her.
Right.
The center piece, if I didn't have a spiritual foundation that Ruth E. Plowden and Doctors Lewis and Tina Kitchen laid in my life, I wouldn't have been married nearly 30 years. I can guarantee you that.
So I want to guarantee you people that if you go to whoatemybrownie.com and clkingspeaker.com and info at il247.org, you will get to learn more about this wonderful man and this wonderful story. And that's just it. I think that, I actually read an article, I think it was yesterday, that said that in the latest study, they found that young people have had an increase. People talk about the decrease in the interest in religions, but there is an increase by 41% since 2021 of young people searching for some form of spirituality, realizing that there's something going on that's bigger than they are. And that I think for those of us who have been on this path for a long time, I was very fortunate in being exposed to Native American cultures. I mean, when I was in high school, I think my whole journey started with reading Black Elk Speaks, and then just being exposed to so many people through travel, through meeting my husband, Bob Vetter, through all kinds of experiences in life, that I did come to a place over and over, and even up until today, even now, even at 70 years old, where I'm going, well, let me look at what this guy has to say and what that woman's doing over there, and what does she mean by being a shaman? And yeah. I've worked with shamans before, and I both male and female, and they all have their different take. They all have their different take on who the creator is, what the universe is. And like I told you on your show, one of my favorite things about Native people is that they don't tell you, they don't describe to you what the creator is. They describe to you, well, let's do a sweat lodge ceremony. They'll describe to you what a ceremony is like. They'll tell you the etiquette you have to bring to the sweat lodge, the smoke lodge, the sundance. They'll talk to you about that part of it, but what you personally will experience, they never tell you.
Wow.
And once you get to know them, then they will tell you what their experience was, but always in a humble way, always in a way where they're saying, this is how the creator spoke to me. I don't know if the creator will speak to you this way, but there is a very definite commitment to the idea of sharing these teachings and this spirituality with whoever is humble and respectful enough to ask. And right. I think that is what I see in you. And I think that you are definitely a person who puts faith into action. I think there's no question about that. And I think that similar to me and everybody I know on this spiritual walk, we question, we look, you can't help. You're living in a world now where things are so upside down. Let's face it. Those of us that have been around a while, you were in the Marines, you know what it means to feel a need to serve your country and to right. love your country. My Cheyenne dad was a ranger during the Korean War, and he explained his service as being that his people have always been responsible for this land. That's what the men were. The men were the protectors of their family and their land. So anybody that threatened that, whether it was in the past before it was the United States or now that it's the United States, you are obligated as a man to go out and protect. And that's why when you go to powwows out west, you will see that they all start with bringing in the flag, bringing in the veterans, honoring the veterans. They are first into that arena because we're all standing and honoring them. And today, we're losing that idea a lot. Even young Native kids are losing that idea of service to country and family, and ultimately that service leads to serving the people of the world and serving the creator.
Absolutely.
So we're going to wrap up this session here with CL, but don't worry, he'll be back. You will get to hear even more from him next week. And CL, since you probably don't know this, I end every session with the mandala meditations. I pick a poem from the book that I wrote that will be coming out on March 8th, on International Women's Day. But this divine poetry that I receive, my divine downloads, as my sister Celia calls them, and I just kind of flip open and see where it takes me. But before I do that, I'm going to one more time tell you guys where you can find whoatemybrownie.com.
Look at you. Look at you.
I know I have to, because I love you so much. And it's a love fest here, folks. Join in. And clkingspeaker.com and info at il247.org. And we're going to speak next week about the service that I just love so much and admire so much, your Stay Free program. So thank you for being with me, CL. For everybody who's tuning in, here's your little mandala meditation for today. What others see and others say have nothing for you as you play with stars and wings and flight of mind. Your soaring is a newer kind. These wings of yours are wet with dew, for morning's time can now renew the path of light, the soul of love. It is your gift from those above. So everybody, thank you again for joining us. If you'd like more insights and resources, visit my website, MaddieCheers.com. Maddie is MADDI. Cheers is just like cheers, CHEERS.com. Don't forget to sign up for our newsletter and for posts about the upcoming book. And I'm just so grateful to all of you, as always, for listening. Thank you, and see you next time.
Thank you for joining us for Home Improvement for the Soul. If you'd like more information, please go to womensoneness.com or maddiecheers.com. That's womensoneness.com or maddiecheers.com. See you on the next episode.